Hello and welcome to the Inspire Life podcast. My name is Michael. I'm your producer, also your co-host, and today I'm really excited to bring you an interview that I did with a friend of mine. His name is Brant Moore, and he is a financial coach, and his company is Atlas Financial Coaching. Now, Brant and I talked all things money on this episode, anything from creating a budget to understanding different types of savings accounts you can have. We even delved into investments in cryptocurrency a little bit, and I think you're going to enjoy this episode. Brant drops a lot of knowledge on us, helps us understand how to be really strategic and proactive with our money, and he also is willing to help out anyone out there who feels like they just need to get things straight when it comes to finances. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and without further ado, let's jump on in. Welcome to the Inspire Life podcast. My name is Michael. I'm your producer, your co-host, and today I'm super pumped to have a longtime friend. He's a financial coach, and he started his own financial coaching company called Atlas Financial Coaching, correct?
Yep, that's it.
Awesome. It's Brant Moore. And Brant and I, we have known each other for quite a while. We played football together back in the day. And I just saw on social media, he was posting a lot of really relevant and important things, especially when it comes to money, when it comes to your mindset on money, how to be strategic with money. And, money is just a thing that, a lot of times we perceive it in different ways, right? And it really it strikes every part of our being, from emotions, relationships, career, what we actually do, what we're passionate about. So I wanted to bring Brant on the show to talk more about money. Hopefully he can, give us some tips and share more about what he does. So before it's super long-winded, Brant, anything that you want to say or yeah.
No, that's all right, man. It's been way too long. I got to shoot back up to Minnesota just so we can to get to Simile, and we played football together, and it's such a great time. Yeah, man. Yeah.
And you're
man.
you're down in Austin, Texas for everyone.
Yeah, I've been living in Austin since 2017, right before the Bitcoin boom. I'm joking. Oh man, literally right before then. 2017 is when I moved. So yeah, I love it. I was living in Fargo, North Dakota before then. So I haven't been in the city since we graduated. So since 2010, I haven't been home. Wow.
Okay. We gotta have you come up soon. Maybe play some touch football at this point, but
man, yeah, I'm way too old for football at this point. my joints and
dude, I'm just curious too, before we start talking about money, so you were in Austin kind of on the brink of when Austin started becoming what now people think of as Austin, right? Like,
oh yeah.
What has that kind of transformation been like, or what have you witnessed or experienced with that?
Oh man, so I think I came about 2 years, because it's nuts now. But when I came, it felt nuts at the time, because everyone you met was either from New York or San Francisco or LA, and everyone's just moving to Austin, and home prices, they're ridiculous now just because of the environment. You have COVID and things like that going, but at that point they were also really, really high. And it's I don't know, I'm not sure what happened to Austin, but it's home, man. It's home. Yeah. I don't see myself ever leaving here. It's a great city. I think Elon lives down the street. We got Joe Rogan living down the street. If you want to hang out with them,
everyone's flocking to Austin.
Everyone's moving to Austin.
A lot of it's for money purposes, right? You look at some of what's going on in like California with tax rates and everything. It makes sense for a lot of people. Yeah. So
Oracle just moved their headquarters down here.
Okay, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, Oracle, Apple has a huge campus here. So every big tech company besides Microsoft is here.
Okay.
Which is just crazy to see.
That's kind of cool. I bet the energy there is just constantly buzzing a little bit, right? You got a lot of great minds and things going on.
Yeah, everything. It's such. What I love about Austin is it's such a down to earth city. It's not a suit city. It's a tech city, I guess. So everyone's down to earth. No one thinks they're better than anybody, and it's kind of like Minneapolis, but the southern version.
Gotcha.
What does Minneapolis have that Austin doesn't have?
Ludicrous?
Without the skyways, skyways
gotcha.
and the migration. I feel like a lot of people in Minneapolis are from the Twin Cities area, from Minnesota, where Austin I feel like people who were just got tired of California, tired of New York, just kind of moved here, and
Good place to congregate.
good place to congregate. Yeah,
Sweet. Well, we're talking about money today, and Brant
absolutely.
is a financial coach. So
Mhm.
I just want to start just for our listeners and for myself a bit. I mean, I kind of have an understanding, but what exactly is financial coaching? What are you doing with your clients?
Yeah, absolutely. So, financial coaching is really being able to help people at the beginning of their financial journey. So, with the basics of finance, we're
Mhm.
talking budgeting, we're talking saving, we're talking debt payoff, um, sometimes credit if you need help with that. Things in that nature is where we really focus on. And then from there, um, we also talk about kind of not specific investments because that's where financial advising comes in. So
Right.
financial advising is, hey, I think you should purchase Apple at this point because they're doing X, Y, and Z, and you're going to 10x your money or whatever, right? That's what
Right.
financial advising is. Where financial coaching is really giving you the skills and the wherewithal to be able to start investing later on.
That's super cool. And
Yeah.
just touch on what Brant said there. It's with like any coaching industry, right? You're really focusing on empowering your clients and giving them the tools to be able to make changes and really make decisions for themselves so that it's going to be sustainable over time, right? So they're not going to be relying on someone else to make these decisions. They're actually going to feel like confident and comfortable with moving forward with their own financial decisions.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's where you kind of take it, where it's a lot of people, and this is just my mindset. I don't think a lot of people, unless you have millions of dollars and you just don't know what to do,
Right.
I think a lot of people can kind of manage their own money, and they might not need a financial advisor if they don't want to. And so, being able to give people those skills, and then from there, show them the platforms to be able to invest and be able to grow their wealth. I think I definitely think that you can you can do that as well instead of going that route. Obviously, I love financial advisors. Nothing against them. Don't want to put them out of business.
For sure.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, and I think it's an interesting timing as well, right? When you look at some of what's happened in recent years, you have when it comes to the investing side of things, you've got platforms like Robinhood that really changed the game, right? They made it so all the other, kind of larger brokerages had to get rid of their commission fees, and you have more people, it seems like, who really want to be more involved rather than just saying, hey, like, this is the employer directed 401k, or this is, I'm going to just give it with an advisor and they'll take care of my Roth or whatever it is for me.
right.
You have a lot of people who want to be active with it, but maybe they don't necessarily know exactly where to start, which is where you would come in to kind of give them the baseline info that they need.
Absolutely. That's where I would come in. Is be able to say, hey, you want to start investing? Well, let's look at, because what's so crazy about everybody within their financial journey, at least in my experience, you have two camps of people. You have the camp of people who opened up their Robinhood account and they're investing, but they're it's not sustainable because they don't have an emergency fund, and
Right.
so their investments go down 20% if, say, COVID happens, or they're playing in crypto or something happens, and their investments go down, and then they pull out. They don't hold or buy more because they get afraid, and then emotion comes in. So they're just
Yeah,
not ready for that kind of investing at that
for
point.
sure.
And then you have other people who are terrified of investing, but and the only reason they're terrified of investing is because they're afraid of losing money, but they're just not seeing their money. They don't understand that, hey, I'm making six figures. I have an extra $1,000 a month, but I'm not budgeting. So I don't know I have an extra $1,000 a month. So I'm just spending that somewhere.
Yeah.
So you have those kind of camps of people when it comes to investing. It's really interesting. Yeah, it's really interesting to be able to help those kinds of people.
For sure, yeah. And let's build off the former there. So like that person who's really, kind of gung ho about it, but maybe they don't have some of those kind of key pieces in place already. What are those key pieces, right? You mentioned an emergency fund. That and like, what does that look like? And then what else would you recommend people just have before they start kind of getting into that space?
Yeah. So what I think everybody needs to have, in my personal opinion, is a emergency fund just starting out. Just a starter emergency fund. You have some financial gurus that'll say $1,000. I don't take it that low. I think it should be anywhere between 1 and 3 months of expenses.
Mhm.
And then from there, if you have that, you can really just have something to fall back on from there. If you're not budgeting, obviously you're going to need a budget. So start out with a budget, small emergency fund, and then after that, look at your debt and kind of see where you're at there as well. If you have that high interest debt, like credit card debt or anything else, say if you have a private student loan and the interest rate's 10% there or what have you, pay that stuff off because your average return in the stock market is going to be anywhere between 5 and 8% depending on your risk tolerance. So you really kind of have to do the math here. Is you have a credit card with 15%, 20% interest rate,
Mhm.
you're going to invest, you're not, you might as well just pay off the credit card first because the returns that you're going to get in the stock market aren't going to get anywhere close to the interest rates for investing, excuse me, on your credit cards. So pay off some of that debt. And what helps you pay off some of that debt is because you have that starter emergency fund kind of starting out. Once you kind of pay off all that high interest debt, if you have some low interest debt, like a perfect example is I have a client, their car loan's like 2% interest rate. They just
Yeah.
refinanced it. They're like, should I start investing or should I just pay off this car loan? I'm like, kind of do it. I'm like, do what you want. You can pay your minimum on the car loan, have that cash flow, and then from there start investing. And then you can take all the money that you would have used to pay off that car loan and take the gains from that and then pay off the car loan later on. So you can, I mean, you can, once you kind of have all that high interest debt paid off and you have that starter emergency fund, you have a choice
Yeah.
to start investing or do what you need to do. But
Yeah, and that's, I
yeah,
mean, you make so many really good points there that when it comes to investing specifically at stock market, right? Like you really got to recognize where you're at and what you already are tied. I don't know if tied up in is the right frame to use, but like what your commitments already are. And if you have
right.
debt that needs to be paid off, right? Like if you're going to go and invest in X, but you're only going to make this percent and you're already paying that much interest, maybe just hold off. Know that, I mean, the market's not going anywhere. At least I don't think it is.
Yeah, I hope not. I sure hope not, or
Yeah.
we're all going to be in trouble.
Yeah, it could be very interesting if that occurred. But
Yeah,
that's not going anywhere. Really take care of those things that are going to be a hindrance going forward. Get those in line first, get those taken care of, and then move into to that space. So, Brant, more on, I guess, a personal level for you. I'm curious, and this is one of the questions that I was just at a conference about money at the start of June
yeah.
for when this episode comes out. And one of the questions they asked us was, what was your first experience or what was the first time when you remember money in your life? I'm not sure if that's something that you
Oh
can
man.
draw on, and it's kind of on the spot question, but I found it to be a really interesting thing. And if you want to think, I can share. I mean, the first time that I really remember money coming up for me was back when I was probably in second or third grade, and
Mhm.
just helped my mom with chores around the house. And she would give my sister and I, we would get a $2 allowance per week. So every Friday, our chores were to take care of like the hard floors and the laundry room and the bathroom. So my sister would sweep them and then I would like mop them and wash them down. And then she'd give us $2 each. So that's kind of the first time I remember at least making money, or really my first ever memory with money. What about
Yeah.
you? Do you have any experience like that or?
Oh man. So I mean, in my household, growing up with money, it was don't look at that because it costs money. Like you go to the store or whatever, and
Yeah.
like, hey, don't touch nothing, don't look at nothing. It's too much. We can't afford it. So that was the time. That was the kind of my
Yeah.
first thing with money is that we couldn't afford it, and I think that can be a really. I had a beautiful mom. She's amazing. I think that can be really hindrance though, kind of long
Mhm.
term. But I guess my first relationship with kind of earning money was I was going to school in Atlanta, and I had a friend who was selling these candy bars out of his backpack, and so he gave me like 5 candy bars, and he said, "Hey, go sell these candy bars for $1. I'll let you keep 10%." Little did I'm 14, 15 years old. I didn't know that 10% of a
50
dollar
cents. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
was, you know what I mean? So at the end of the day, I go back, I sell these 5 candy bars, and he gives me 50 cents, and I was so proud of my 50 cents. Like I'm like I worked hard
Hey, man. Sales.
to get that 50 cents. Oh man. Well, it's funny that I mean that's the typical. I was in sales for a long time. That's the typical commission you're gonna get for for a lot of sales.
That's great.
But yeah, that was definitely my first experience, and I got to save up. I used to rap when I was a kid. I'm way past that now, but back in the day, and I saved up my first like cheap computer microphone. It was like $8. I went to Walmart and bought it. So that was like the first thing I got to buy with my own earned money, I
I love
guess.
it.
Yeah,
Dude, I love that just go out and make some commission for me and sell these for me.
yeah,
Your other point too, you mentioned, growing up and being like, well, that's too much, that's too expensive, we can't afford that. And you mentioned something really powerful that we talked a lot about at this conference I was at, that just having that mindset with your kids or within your family can actually be a hindrance. So
yeah.
tell me more about that. Like what did you mean by that statement?
Yeah, so I think the we don't have enough or you can't afford that. I think it can be a hindrance because it makes you feel like you don't deserve money or money isn't for you. And I still grow up with, I still have that mindset a little bit today where you ask my wife, I'm like, what? That costs money? No, we can't buy that couch. What are you talking about? I got to put some money into the stock market for that. You know what I mean? You get that mindset. So I see it now as an adult, but I think what it can really do, just kind of not having that kind of abundance mindset over time. So if you have the mindset of abundance and people talk about law of attraction and kind of how that works, I don't know. I let people, whatever floats your boat, whatever gets you there. But I think having that mindset that I can afford this if I work hard for it. I can buy these things if I budget the right way or if I do X, Y, and Z. I think is a lot better and can be a lot more helpful to people because then they'll save up for what they want or they'll get that extra job or they'll do whatever they need to do to be able to get the things that they want.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, what Brant's saying here is so important to recognize that just the subtle switch of you saying I can versus I can't, right?
Yeah.
Like you are really neurologically, you're telling yourself that this is a possibility and this is an opportunity. And it's taking you out of that kind of scarcity mindset that maybe I'm not worthy of having this, or, it's not something that I should be doing, or, and saying should to yourself is one of the most disempowering things you can do, right? It's like I will or I won't, right? So
Right.
that's powerful because when it comes to money and mindset, I mean, those two things are synonymous. You got to be able to have the mindset to be able to properly manage and understand your finances. So that was really powerful. I thank you for sharing that.
Oh, not a problem at all, man. Yeah, it's just so important. One thing I always go through with my clients, and they'll always say this, is you don't have to have this kind of stringent mindset with money to where I don't have enough. I need to eat beans and rice and beans. The only time I'm going into a restaurant is if I'm working in one. These are all terms that there's a financial guru out there. If they listen to him, they'll know who I'm talking about. But
Okay.
um, that's you don't have to have that. You can and you can get to where you want to go with that mindset. But one thing that I always, if I bring up Google Maps and I go Austin to Minneapolis or Austin to whatever city, and I say there's multiple routes for you to get to where you want to go. You can go the beans and rice and beans. I can't afford anything unless I can't afford anything. You can go that mindset and you can get there. It's going to not be a lot of fun, but there's also a scenic route. So
Mhm.
where to get from Austin to San Francisco, you can go through Salt Lake City and you can see the lake, and then you can go through Reno and gamble and have some fun, and you can do those things and still get to where you want to go. It's just going to take longer. So at the end of the day, it's your choice on, do you want to tough it out and get there faster, or do you want to have that scenic route to get to your money goals?
I love that. I love that for so many reasons because I feel like depending on what kinds of maybe social media you're on or where you're getting information, and Brand, I'm sure you're familiar with the FIRE acronym, the
Oh,
finance.
yep.
Yeah. So kind of what he's referencing is this financial independence, retire early mindset
Yep.
that a lot of people have. And it's really big. I know in like the tech, there's a lot of people who are trying to
Oh, it's
just like,
huge.
yeah, they're trying to work as much as possible and save. Like, I mean, these are people who are making six figures who are trying to spend less than $20 a week so that they can retire when they're like, I don't know, 32 or
35.
not
Yeah.
even. Yeah. And what Brant's saying is that, well, you also have a life to live. That's what I'm really hearing, right? Is
Right.
like, yeah, it's great to have goals and to pursue those really hard, but like, also you should take time and go see Salt Lake City if you have the chance, or if there's a really cool new restaurant that you want to check out, like don't tell yourself you can't do it because you have to keep eating rice and beans and just rice and beans, right? Like
Yeah,
even though you're spending money, you can definitely still accomplish your goals and be realistic with your time frame at the same time. It's kind of what I'm hearing from you.
absolutely. And that's exactly right. And there's nothing wrong with either route. They're going to get you to where you need to go. Both routes are going to get you there, but you just kind of have to understand which route you're on, and you can pivot. You can go back on the fast route to say like, hey, I had enough fun in Reno. Maybe I need to, I don't know, go to a boring city, Modesto or somewhere in California. I don't know. You go and do those things, but um, yeah, you don't have to if you don't want to. And I think a lot of people, that's really liberating for people. They're like, wow, I can take the scenic route. I'm like, you absolutely can. Just know the risks associated with the scenic route. There's some road work there. There's some, you know, you got Reno. I don't know, maybe Vegas or Reno. You got those places that you're going to go. So you have to understand the risks. That if you get a flat tire on your scenic route through Reno, you have to understand that you might not have much money at that point in time where you're going to have to buckle down. Um, but if you understand those things, go have some fun.
I like it. I like it. It's a really good mindset to have with it. And what I'm hearing too is a lot of it's choice, right? Like,
Right.
people got to be able to have autonomy when it comes to their money and the decisions they make with it. So I think that's just a powerful message to share. Um, Going off of that, kind of the autonomy and choice route, I'm curious, Brant, when it comes to like you and your family, your goals, your finances, what are some of the choices that you make that not necessarily giving advice, but
Yeah.
is setting you up and helping you get towards your plan and your goals?
Yeah. So one thing and this is just a family thing that my wife and I do. Every single month we have a budget meeting, and now it's pretty quick. We're like, hey, I'm like, hey, Toy, my wife's name is Toy. Hey, I made the budget. Can you check it real quick? That's our budget meeting now. But at first, when we first started budgeting, we would sit down for like 30 minutes. We'd be like, hey, do we really need to be spending X here? In 2 months, we have Christmas, and what's that going to look like? And what do we need to do now to be able? So those things, doing that every single month, and you can do that by yourself if you're single. You can do that with your wife. If you have kids that are old enough, they can join that meeting. That is, oh man, it's just so powerful because that way we can make plans and be able to do those things. So my daughter, her first birthday is next month,
Congrats.
and thank you so much. Yeah, it's, oh man, my wife is like, this is our celebration too because she's not gonna remember this. So I'm
Absolutely.
like, you're right. So we started planning her birthday in July. We started planning that last month. So now in July, we're ready. It's there. Money's there. It's set aside. We know what we're doing, and now we can be able to get her the things that we want to be able to get her, just from planning.
That's so awesome. That, and I think just to reiterate a couple of your points, planning, I kind of developed a new mantra within the last couple of weeks. It's a little bit of willpower and a
Yeah.
lot of strategy and planning will take you a long way. Right. So really having a plan and something that you're committed to and sticking to. And then two, what you went into, which I think we should touch on a little more, relationships and money, right? I mean, being open and honest and having those conversations on a regular basis, that's huge, right? Because
Yeah.
I mean, this is at the conference I was at, they shared the number one reason that most marriages end in divorce is because of money, right?
Right.
Because either one party is excess spending or there's just a misalignment, an agreement that's not being held. Having those conversations early and often when it comes to a relationship is so important so that everyone's on the same page, so that everyone's goals and what they want to accomplish is going to be met. Right. Another thing they mentioned at the conference I was at is that if you're in a relationship and you have two different goals when it comes to money, it doesn't, just because they might be different and might take a different amounts or whatever it's going to be, just because they're different doesn't mean that you only pursue one. It means maybe you're pursuing both at the same time, but the timeline has to change, right? Or
Right.
some of the behaviors going into that need to change a little bit. So yeah, I mean, if there's any other points that you want to make off of that, or I just think when it comes to relationships, having those conversations around Monday is one of the most important things when it comes to your relationship.
Oh man, you're so right. It has been because my wife, we haven't budgeted forever. We didn't start out doing this. So I remember when we weren't budgeting, and we were so bad. We would I would pull money out of my 401k, and this is like a year out of college, and I'd be like, hey, let's go on a vacation. And then we pay for the vacation, we get there and we didn't have any money to spend. Oh man. But then like you can just imagine how frustrating that must be on two people to go and do those things, right? So now it's been such a great thing just for our relationship. And yeah, I totally, if you're married or if you have significant other, no matter what you do, some couples don't combine their finances, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Um, no matter what you do, I still think that money conversation should be a topic in the relationship for sure. And bring your kids in if they're old enough to understand money. Bring your kids in that too, because that's just so powerful. One of my clients, they have older kids, and their kids are like, "Hey, can we budget for this in a few months?" Like, oh man, just think about that. Like
Yeah.
when they're 18 and they get their first job in college, like paying off student loan debt. Hopefully, it's free by then. If it's not, paying off that debt, and just, oh man, they're gonna be able to make so many good financial decisions. So bringing them into those conversations is so key.
Yep. Start that conversation as early as you can.
Yeah.
It's powerful. And I mean, I think compounding interest is an important thing when it comes to your investments, but also when it comes to your knowledge of finances, right? So the
Oh yeah.
earlier and more often we're having those conversations with our family, with friends, anyone, the more that we're going to be able to take away from and learn from one another to move forward into our goals and the reality that we want when it comes to money. So
Right.
very well said. I want to ask another question that we had at the conference that I was at.
Yeah.
What, and maybe you can speak to this for yourself, or,
Hmm.
maybe if this topic is appropriate or not, but what is your financial appetite for risk? And where does risk come into
Oh
the
man.
equation when it comes to investments as well as just, I guess, personal day-to-day finances?
Oh, I am moderately aggressive.
Okay.
If I had to put myself on a spectrum,
Yeah.
I'm definitely moderately aggressive, and if I was single, I'd be aggressive. Oh man, yeah.
Tell
I
me
think it's
more.
just because
Like, yeah,
I'm
go
young. I
ahead.
have time. I
Yep.
think that's the thing. Is I have time to make mistakes and be able to do those things. If you think retiring at 60, I'm knocking on 30 in about a year and a half. So you got to think, like, I got 30 years to do this.
Right.
So I got plenty of time to make mistakes and do my thing. But because I have a daughter,
Right.
um, like I have to take that into. I have a family to take care of, and
Brings the risk from here to
it
like
brings the
here,
risk to here from like
right?
I'm just a step above moderate now to where like I got to put some more money in these index funds. I can't put it all in black.
Right.
So yes, I think that that definitely kind of helps rein me in as far as kind of investment strategy and just kind of way I think about things.
Yeah, I think you make
Yeah.
a good point too, right? Like off most of the times, right, in most circles when it comes to finances, the younger you are, the more risk tolerance you have. And just recognizing too that like even if hey you make some moves, some decisions, it doesn't work out the best. I mean, you're young, you have plenty of time to work and create businesses, create
Yeah.
programs. And I mean, if you lose 25,000, I mean, you can make it back, right? It happens. That's a lot, obviously, but
Oh yeah. I
uh
would hope I don't lose that
no,
much.
yeah.
But
That's kind of a segue into the next question. So,
yeah.
one of the questions they had at the conference is if you had $25,000 to
Hmm.
invest or spend, what would your strategy be, or what would you do with that?
Okay. If I had $25,000, how would I break that up?
I'm
It's a
asking all
great
these
question.
on the spot questions.
That's okay. If you gave me $25,000, and is that all I have is 25K, or do I still
Just
have the stuff I already have now?
just if you just had like 25 right now that you have to
Okay.
use by like, I don't know, as
That I had to start out with.
ASAP. Yep.
Okay. That's okay.
Yeah, let's say
Yeah.
starting out. I like that.
So I'd go 1 to 5% in crypto
Okay.
for sure. It's a controversial asset class, but just I've done my research on it, and I'm willing to risk 1 to 5% of the portfolio for that.
Okay.
Um, then from there, I would and I would buy that crypto today because the market's down.
Yeah.
So I just go put the 1 to 5%. I put it in there now, and I'd be okay. And then from there, I would take the other 95%, and I would dollar cost average that into the S&P, into just basically just into index funds.
Very nice.
Um, it'd be really, really be 5% would be fun, and then the rest would be super boring.
Okay.
Yeah, I would just dollar cost average it into index funds.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would. And then from there, the other 25, my crypto gains that I get, I would take that and have some fun. I
Okay.
would go and maybe I would try some AMC, GameStop. I don't, just for fun. Maybe not. I'm not in AMC or GameStop right now, but
No,
maybe I might. This isn't financial investment advice, by the way.
no.
Don't do that.
That dude, I mean, they'll be studying the, January and spring and summer 2021
Oh
in
man,
finance classes forever.
yeah.
It's just been fascinating to watch
Well,
and be a part of.
yeah. Well, thinking about it, you got to think like Robinhood created, well, meme investing in my mind. I think it started in the early to mid 2000s as far as taking risky, as far as maybe 2008. I think
Right.
it started then, being able to make those risky bets. But I think it really started to gain steam now, and this is a new form of investing that nobody kind of knew what was going to happen. I've just
Right.
kind of been watching by the sidelines. So you got AMC, GameStop, and then you have Dogecoin, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh man, it's
What is this,
it's
right? Like,
it's well, yeah, it's the people saying to me. I think it's the people saying that, hey, Wall Street, we're going to beat you at your game. You know, we can manipulate markets too, and I feel like it's the people realizing how much power they actually have to manipulate markets.
yes.
And I've talked to a few retail investors; they're not selling, so it's
Right.
really interesting what they're doing. I'm sorry to go on the tangent, but yeah, it's
No, it's
I'm
a good
watching the
tangent.
sidelines. I haven't touched any of that, but
I
it's
mean,
it's
yeah, full disclosure, I participated in January, and right now, it went well. I'll just say that. But now I'm just kind of watching because it's,
yeah.
dude. I mean, there's a difference between investing in gambling, and I mean
Oh
that's
yeah,
straight up gambling.
yeah.
So it is interesting. Something that you touched on that I do want to touch, that I wanted to touch on, which I'm glad you brought it up.
That's okay.
We're running close to time here. Cryptocurrency.
Mhm.
Like, if you could just break it down for us, what do we need to know? I'll just start with that
Okay.
because I don't have any crypto because I don't understand it enough. I kind
Yeah,
of have an idea, but not enough where I feel really confident in it. That being
yeah.
said, I don't necessarily have to be to invest in it, but I'm just curious your perspectives on it and your thoughts.
Oh, no, that's okay. So I'm going to take a few steps back here, just to kind of talk about the history of it and just the way
Mhm.
I understand it. I am not a crypto expert. I would say I'm the type of guy, I'm going to use a basketball analogy. It might be a bad analogy, but whatever. I'm the type of person, I'm the guy who came into the gym, and I might be a little bit in shape. You could tell I used to play in middle school or high school, but I'm not the professional crypto
Right.
guy. But I'll try to explain it the best way I can. So you got to think way back before grandparents and our grandparents were here. You had people kind of bartering with gold and silver coins,
Mhm.
and those things kind of got really cumbersome to use. So then the government said, well, hey, let's go and give people a representation of that gold and silver. We're going to give them paper money. And then if they ever wanted their gold and silver back, we're going to then, they can go and take their paper money to the bank, and they can then go back and get their gold and silver. So then the governments, and I don't know what happened, I'm oversimplifying this, but one day the government said, well, hey, we're going to take our paper money off of this gold and silver, off this gold standard, and we're going to turn this into fiat money. And all fiat means, I forget the term, but it basically means that it's kind of backed by trust. It's trust in the government. And down the line, government said, well, hey, we don't have to print this paper money anymore. We can just create digital money. And so what the government did is they basically have a central bank that manages a ledger, and all ledger is what money is where. So Mike, you have money in your bank account. We know how much you spend every month. We All that is with your bank, and if the government wanted to get that, they can. It's all on that. It's all on the central bank's ledger. And so what cryptocurrency did is they said, well, hey, we have this came out of the 2008 2009 crisis. The government was just printing money, going crazy. And so what they did is they said, well, hey, we don't need the government to be able to manage our money and our currency, we can kind of do that ourselves. Instead of having the central bank manage our ledger, we're going to have that ledger, and all ledger is just Mike spent money here, Brant spent money there, this is how much is in the account, etc. We're going to manage that ledger on a network of computers instead.
Yeah.
It's going to, you can't change it, you can't hack it, because if you hacked it, it had to be on all the computers. You would have to hack all the computers,
Right.
which is just really, really hard. So it's hard to hack. You can't do it. You can't change the ledger because you would have to change the ledger on all the computers. So Mike, if you wanted to change the code and say, I have $300 million now just by doing some code, all the computers. So we figured out a way to be able to change. We figured out a way to be able to have a banking and financial system to where the central bank doesn't have to manage that.
Mhm.
And as for me, as a person who was like, wow,
Non-status quo.
non-status quo, there we go. Definitely not. I'm not an anarchist. I think government needs, they have their place.
Yeah.
But for me as a non-status quo person, I'm like, wow, that is an amazing way for us to be able to manage our finance. So now we have that. We have this digital money that everybody can use. All you need is the internet and access to the internet. Now you have other cryptocurrencies that are saying, hey, we figured out digital money, but let's program on top of it. And that's where it gets really exciting for me. So we have this money that doesn't do anything. It just, I send you money, you send me money back. What if we added an if-then statement, if-then code to money, to where I can put a smart contract on top of that money? And that kind of blows my mind, where you can add insurance, you can add identity management to money, you can add something called a non-fungible token, to where there's a smart contract on top of that, to where our dollars are fungible, right? Your dollar is one thing, and they do the same thing, right?
Right. Like I
Where
can give you a 10 and you can give me a 5 and 5 once.
yeah, it's very fungible. You can make, but you can make cryptocurrency. You can add a smart contract on top of it, and that gives us the ability to say, hey, this piece of code is different from all the other code out there. You can't change it. And when you do that, you can start monetizing digital art or digital videos and things of that nature, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So it's a really, really fun space just to kind of do for me. And I totally biffed my way through that explanation, but
I think that was
no,
great. No, what
yeah,
you really
but
touch on is instead of the central bank being the only thing that's validating what's going on, at least this is what I gained from what you said. Instead of the
right,
central bank being like the be all say all, instead you're going to have a massive network of servers and computers and people really that are the
right.
ones validating it rather than just one central thing, which to me sounds like a great idea. I
A-
think it
a-
it makes sense
absolutely.
more. Yeah.
And so what's even more cool to me, and I know there's economics that comes into this, and maybe it doesn't work, maybe it does, but you have the central bank in 2008, 2009, they're just printing tons of money. And even now with the stimulus checks and things of that nature, they're just printing money.
Printing more.
Yeah. And so you have to think, this is, you know what I mean? People who have money, they're going to be okay. They have their money in stocks and bonds, but the poor people in the world, they're getting just screwed in this
Mhm.
situation because their money is now worth less. So what crypto is doing is saying, hey, well, we're going to put a finite amount of money into the system. You can't change it. It's not, you just can't change it. It's there. And so now that money turns into a store of value over time, which is what Bitcoin is. It's just a
Yeah.
store of value. Some people think it's a currency and you can go and buy, I think the first Bitcoin transaction was with pizza or something like that.
I've seen
Um,
the memes
yeah,
about it.
I poor guy. I think that money, I think that's worth millions of dollars now, how much he spent.
Yeah.
I think it was spent 10,000 or 100,000 Bitcoin on pizza. Wow.
Like two pizzas, yeah.
Yeah. But you got to think now, you're turning the whole system on its head
Yeah.
and allowing people to be able to grow their wealth without having to do those things. So yeah, to me, I think the concept of cryptocurrency, I personally think it's the internet before the internet.
Yeah.
I think we're at a point to where if you told me that you could be a part of the internet in 1992, in hindsight, we would all be like, wow, yeah, absolutely. Put it all on black. And I think personally for me, I think it's 1998 in the internet, in the
Okay.
crypto space, in my personal
Gotcha.
opinion.
Okay.
I could be wrong, but we'll see.
Yeah. Well, it'll play out, and I'm definitely keeping my eye on it as well.
Yeah,
And we'll probably be making a move at some point in there.
yeah,
I do want to ask one more question before we go in. I'm going to have to listen to
sure.
this again a couple times. And as I'm producing it, so many takeaways here. So I thank you again so much for
Oh no,
being
that's
on the
okay.
show. And I mean, full disclosure, I completely dropped the ball the first time we were going to try and do this. So I'm
Oh
just
no.
grateful that you're still willing to meet up and talk
Oh,
in the
it's okay.
virtual sphere.
I was in a small apartment at that point in time. We were kind of we were between houses. We were waiting for this house to get built, and so man, I'm so happy that we're doing it here, just
Yeah.
because my we you might have heard a dog next door, neighbors upstairs. It would just been really bad quality. So I'm in hindsight, I think it everything happens for a reason. So it's totally
Universe is
fine.
always looking out. It
Yeah,
always
it's always
plays
looking
out.
out for us.
I asked this to all of our guests on the show. It's the last question.
Yeah.
When, whether it's what we talked about or just, whatever it is that you feel is important, what's the one takeaway or the one thing that you want our listeners to walk away with or gain from this episode today?
Yeah, the one thing that I'm hoping kind of listeners can gain from this episode is that money doesn't have to be scary, and it's just an important part. I mean, it's an important part of life, obviously, but it doesn't have to be scary. Money is empowering if you let it be, and so that's what I'm hoping people can get from that. And I'll also make a budget. That's the starting point. If you need to start, you would be surprised how many people don't have a budget, and so just start out with that. It's so important.
I like it. That's big. Yeah. It's definitely something that we can use as a tool to help us, do the things that we want to do and have the experiences we want to have and have the things we want to have. And
Yeah,
like Brant said, it all starts with, having a basic foundation, having a budget, and understanding what's coming in, what's going out. That's a great place to start.
oh man, yeah, that's a great place to start. One thing, and one my mantra as far as with my coaching goes is, with all of our money being digital nowadays, I haven't touched a dollar bill in months. It's
Yeah.
been so it's all of our money being digital. It's hard for us to see our money, and so back in the day where if you had $100, it was kind of, you could get away with not budgeting if you just carrying cash around because you could see it. You could be like, oh man, I got this and a bunch of cents. But
Right.
now you got credit cards, you got all your money is digital. You can just swipe your card 24/7,
Yeah.
put it on Amazon. It's already there. Netflix is coming out.
Oh
You
yeah.
can't see it. You know what I mean? It's hard to keep track of everything.
Mhm.
That on top of just life, kids and everything. So it's hard. And so if we can just see our money, and that's the beginning of it. That's the ground. Just seeing what's going on in your bank account.
Yeah.
Um,
I would,
get
I
a
would
handle of that. Yeah.
I like that a lot, recognizing that it is more, you're not necessarily seeing it come and go. It kind of just does its thing, right? Something
Yeah.
that I've learned and that I practice that, maybe a feedback on this, but like literally every day, pretty much every day, I log into all of my accounts and look at all of so I'm looking at, my checking, my savings, my retirement brokerages. I'm looking at the loans that I owe, my
Yeah.
business account. I look at everyone, probably not every day. I probably miss Saturday and Sunday here and there, but I
Oh,
look at it every day. And something that I would pose to the listeners is, what is your relationship with your money, right? Like, how often
yeah.
are you checking on your money, your money friends, right? Like, are you cool letting some of them go and having some more come back, right? So
Yeah.
that's a question. What is your money relationship? What are
Yeah.
your thoughts on that?
It's so real. Yeah. Well, I do something very similar to where I use this app, and it's made by the Dave Ramsey group,
Oh yeah.
and it's called Every Dollar. I now, if anybody who knows me knows that me and Dave and I have like a love-hate relationship. I don't know Dave personally, obviously, but I think his app is the best on the market. Use
Okay.
it. It's called Every Dollar. So what we
Every
do
dollar.
is no pun intended, every single dollar that we spend, we set our budget in there. Then every single dollar that we spend, we track it. So if we spend $1 at Starbucks, I guess we can't spend $1 at Starbucks, but if we spend we spend $1
20.
at we spend $20 at Starbucks, $30 at Starbucks, we go and we put that transaction at every dollar. And so we've gotten to the point where my wife, she doesn't look at our bank account. She just looks at every dollar because it's there. She knows, okay,
Nice.
we have X amount of money sitting in there. Obviously I go and I'm a stickler. I log into our bank account probably 2 or 3 times a day.
Yeah.
But that's just me. I'm not recommending people do that. I don't recommend people do that. That's just, I'm crazy. So
I'm right there with you.
yeah, my wife and I were just talking about, Brant, how long you calculate our net worth about 3 times a week. She's like, it hasn't changed, Brant. I'm like, I know. It's changed a little bit. Apple's down. Yeah, that's what we do as well. But I'm kind of going into money relationship is like kind of learning that if you have a plan, looking in your bank account, it's not scary anymore because you have a plan. Am I on plan? Am I not on plan? And
Yep.
So if you set your budget, that, hey, if you have a plan, it's just not scary
Right.
because it's not unexpected.
Yeah.
That you overspent at some point in time, or that you're underspending, then you should have quite a bit of money in your bank account.
And I mean, what I'm hearing too is it takes out that reactivity, right? Like you
Yeah.
log in, you're like, oh my gosh, I have $11 left. It's like, well, no, if you had your plan and you're sticking to it, or at least being mindful of it,
Yeah.
A, that won't happen. Or B, if you log in, you have $11, you know it already, right?
Yeah,
You're not like thrown off, right? So it's so powerful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I thank you so much for your time today. I do want to give you the opportunity, how can our listeners get in touch with you? Where can they check you out on the internet? Anything that you might have for them? Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, my website is atlasfinancialcoaching.com, spelled just how it sounds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you're looking, if you need help or anything like that, financial help, you can always reach out to me there. My Instagram is just Brantmoore, BRANTMOORE _ yeah, and I post personal things about just family. It's my personal Instagram, and then I also post a lot of financial stuff as well. And so if you're just looking for some free content there, you can do that as well, and you can get in touch with me there.
For sure. Yeah. And Brant, I can attest to what I see on Instagram. He posts a lot of little small things that they can add up for you, for sure. You share a lot of good content there. So I'll put the website and the Instagram in the show notes here.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. I'll really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
For sure. Yeah.
And yeah, anybody, if they need help, we're always open. So
for sure. Brant's a great guy. I can attest to that as well. And I want to say to all of our listeners to the Inspire Life podcast, as always, keep inspiring. And thanks again, Brant. It was a pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for tuning into the Inspire Life podcast today. Make sure you check out Brant's social media as well as his website, especially if you are looking for any sort of guidance when it comes to tackling your finances. Also, whatever channel you're listening in on today, please comment, like, and subscribe. That helps us continue to get the word out to more people to help everyone continue to thrive and accomplish their health and wellness goals. Lastly, jump on over to Facebook and join the Inspire Twin Cities community. That's the new name of the Inspired Living community, and that is where Dr. Mel and I share all of our content as well as engage with you, answer your health questions, and help everyone continue to live their most inspired and thriving life. And of course, as always, until next time, keep inspiring.